Good evening and welcome to this week's edition of Talk to Sven. Thank you for tuning in and thank you for the comments and engagement of last week on this very, very important topic of purposeful leadership. Today with me we have the sign language interpreter Erika Oshona, as well as Denver Kesting, which was such a great contributor of last week, and I really look forward to have a wonderful conversation today on emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is one of the most important measures or secrets, I would call, for me in creating success. Now, we looked at that purposeful leadership, and I really encourage everyone, go onto the internet, because purposeful leadership is the new thing of driving a business, starting a business, and especially as a young entrepreneur, may mean everything to you to take your people along, to energize them, to create a wonderful organization. And for that, obviously, we need emotional intelligence. So before we start the discussion, let's tune into a short video showing us what is emotional intelligence.
Emotional intelligence is the quality that enables us to confront with patience, insight, and imagination the many problems that we face in our effective relationship with ourselves and with other people. The term emotional intelligence may sound odd. We're used to referring to intelligence just as a general quality, without unpicking a particular variety a person might possess. And therefore, we don't tend to highlight the value of a distinctive sort of intelligence which currently does not enjoy the prestige it should. Every sort of intelligence signals an ability to navigate well around a particular set of challenges: mathematical, linguistic, technical, commercial. When we say that someone is clever, but add that they've made a mess of their personal lives, or that they've acquired a fortune but are restless and sad, or that they are powerful but intolerant and unimaginative, we're pointing to a deficit in what deserves to be called emotional intelligence. In social life, we can feel the presence of emotional intelligence in a sensitivity to the moods of others, and in a readiness to grasp the surprising things that may be going on for other people beneath the surface. Emotional intelligence recognizes a role for interpretation and knows that, for example, a fiery outburst might be a disguised plea for help, or that a long political rant may be provoked by hunger, or that concealed within a forceful jolliness may be a sorrow that has been sentimentally disavowed. In relation to ourselves, emotional intelligence shows up in a skepticism around our emotions, especially those of love, desire, anger, envy, anxiety, and professional ambition. The emotionally intelligent refuse to just trust their first impulses or the inherent wisdom of their feelings. They know that hatred may mask love, that anger may be a cover for sadness, and that we are prone to huge and costly inaccuracies around whom we desire and what we really want. Emotional intelligence is also what distinguishes those who are crushed by failure from those who know how to greet the troubles of existence with a melancholy and at points darkly humorous resilience. The emotionally intelligent appreciate the role of well-handled pessimism within the overall economy of a good life. Emotional intelligence isn't an inborn talent. It's always the result of education, specifically education in how to interpret ourselves, in where our emotions arise from, in how our childhoods influence us, and in how we might best navigate our fears and our wishes. In the ideal society, it would be routine to be taught emotional intelligence from the youngest age, before we'd had the opportunity to make too many mistakes. It's because we have, until now, not taken emotional education seriously enough that our species has grown ever more technically adept while retaining the level of wisdom of our earliest days, with catastrophic results. We are now evolved monkeys with nuclear weapons.
Now, with this short clip on introducing emotional intelligence, I'd like to welcome Denver once again. Denver, what an important topic. It is such a, I'm so passionate about this topic because I think it makes such a difference on what you do. And I think we talk business, but I think we talk everything in life, right?
Absolutely. Good evening, Sven, and good evening to the viewer. It is indeed quite a heavy topic, quite a loaded term. From your perspective, what is your take on what exactly is emotional intelligence?
Yeah, obviously everyone has his own interpretation, I think, but their key elements of is the self-awareness, being aware of what you say, how you present yourself. And then obviously it's the self-regulation. Knowing the impact you have, how do you control that to impact the emotions of others? Then it's the empathy, to have an understanding for people, and of course the motivational factor you have, and then the social skills you apply in your environment. So in other words, in very short, it's the ability to control and manage your own emotion, to have an impact, in fact, to manage and influence other people's emotions to the benefit of to what you want to achieve.
What I hear you say, Sven, and I concur with that view, is one needs to be aware of your emotions. Yeah. And to also that compassion and empathy that you were referring to, you need to also display that towards yourself and your emotions before you can get a grip on it and before you can actually use them to add value to your organization, to your team, to your people. You've touched on it already, but I'd like us to unpack a bit further about what emotional intelligence looks like in practice. How does one live it?
Yeah, I think if I may give you an example, and I think that was in university. There was a professor who was brilliant in what he was doing. He was brilliant in solving problems, having the analytical skill. He had a short-term memory to grasp things quickly, and also the fast recognition. And then he was promoted to be in charge of the whole faculty. But since he had no EQ, he was not able to run the business. And he didn't make it. They had to remove him because IQ on its own means nothing if you don't have EQ. And obviously in the business today, every day you have to think, how do you walk into the office? With a smile? Without a smile? The moment I walk in with a very upset face, everyone fears and runs and so forth. So I don't promote an environment which is conducive to thinking, decision-making, and management whatsoever. So this is being aware that every physical behavior in terms of smile or not smile has an impact. The way I say good morning, I mean, you say, good morning, Denver, or you say, morning. It's two versions. The one will probably tell you, so what did I do wrong? And the other one will tell you, wow, what a great morning to start.
So one also internalizes the way others engage with you. But I think it's not that clear-cut and that simple, because emotional intelligence also involves authenticity. So if you are experiencing a difficult day, if you are experiencing a challenging situation or a troublesome chapter, to embrace that on the one hand, but still take charge of it and actually use it to your advantage. How would that work?
Yeah, I think you're hitting the nail on its head. Authenticity, honesty, and complete vulnerability is a key ingredient to emotional intelligence. Now, for example, if I have a bad day and I'm saying to you, Denver, good morning, I have a bad day, I'm sorry. So do not take this personally. Or if I say the wrong thing, immediately apologize. Denver, I'm sorry about the way I said it. It is not meant that way. And I think it's normal that every person has a bad day. Emotional intelligence doesn't mean, put away your personality or anything else. The one thing maybe could be sometimes, if you really have a very, very bad day, and maybe in my position and I can't get over it, maybe I should stay home.
Yes.
Because the negative impact I have, and I mean, maybe after post-COVID now at the moment, or COVID, there's nothing wrong with our, virtual participation in things. So, calm down a little later, have a session of relaxing, meditation, whatever it is. But make sure that even when you're not in a good space, say so. It's fine. People understand. It's no problem.
I hear you say, Sven, that we need to accept absolute personal responsibility for where we're at and communicate that to others. And being vulnerable and allowing yourself to be exactly that also allows your team to be vulnerable and share with you wherever they are at.
Sure. Yeah. So very important. You take accountability for your actions. You need to understand that any word you use, you are accountable for, and yet the vulnerability will somehow bring it into context by saying that basically that that I'm not a perfect person. I'm taking accountability. I'm sorry about this. You immediately put people at ease. And but I think the moment it's my issue, I'm accountable for that, it makes all the difference. Before you go and saying, well, the others are the issue. That's why. If we are not in a great space, often we think the others aren't in a great space because we can't see anything else but another great space. And that's the whole thing.
Because we see life, we see the world through our eyes.
Yeah.
So I project out what I'm feeling, what I'm experiencing onto you, while it might not be the case. It might not be the same situation.
No.
I'm happy to hear how passionate you are about vulnerability. Many of us believe, incorrectly so, that vulnerability is weakness. The renowned vulnerability coach, Dr. Brené Brown, teaches us that vulnerability is strength. Is that also the message that you'd like to get across to your team and to your company and to your organization?
Yeah, it's strength and it's smartness. I think a little secret of mine is I absolutely make myself vulnerable. I have no issue, although I hate it. I'm having a few tears sometimes in speeches I make or something, but because I'm showing how passionate I am about this. And I'm also sharing how that I'm also just one, like any one of us. I'm also got feelings. I'm also, I'm vulnerable like anybody else. And people copy this one. It's very important that you can actually teach vulnerability. Everything you do, you can teach in terms of seeing if people know what the benefit of that is, they will copy you. But that's only if you bring context to it. That we have to show who we really are. Just another person who cares about everything around them.
So when we do know that the concept of emotional intelligence is not necessarily a brand new one, but there's been a lot of emphasis on intelligence, IQ. Why do you think there appears to be an increased awareness about emotional intelligence, about EQ?
Yeah, as I mentioned before, IQ is very limited to technical and problem-solving skills. It does not take into account the people around you. The EQ is the one that takes into account people around you to get the best versions of them, and for that, I need to apply a behavior, words that brings out the best in them. Now, the African proverb which say, alone we run fast or we walk fast, together we go far. And I think today's world, there is no longer this one thing as one person running the show. You have no chance if you do not take teams along and provide an environment, a working environment for the people to be in the best version. And that brings success today. And that's why EQ has become such a critical part of, and often, I see there's a trend. You have to display high EQ to be appointed. If you are appointed in the team and you are not playing the game and you're not participating and you are detrimental to the whole vibe and the dynamism in a team, you're a problem. You're a huge problem. And that's why IQ is becoming, I think, if you have basic IQ, probably that's what you need. But EQ is the thing to have. And that's why many people with high IQ are mostly not successful. Obviously, if it's coupled with very high EQ. I'm not saying that IQ it's not possible, or EQ is not possible if there's high IQ, but then EQ will compensate whether you're high or low on IQ. It just doesn't matter.
Yes.
And team players are the ones that win the game.
Earlier this evening, you shared the example of the professor who had a high IQ but lacked EQ and he wasn't successful. Why do you think, bearing in mind how important it is, don't we teach it in schools? Because you need to inculcate this sense of emotional intelligence from a very young age.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a big topic. The great news is, or the encouraging news is, number one, is many people are born with EQ, very high, sensitive about what they say, what people, how they view things, they listen to them, and so forth. And then you get many more the stereotype, they have a view about something, you don't allow any other conversation to be entertained in a discussion, and so forth. And therefore, and again, the great news about EQ is that it can be taught. You mentioned schools. We mentioned leadership. I mean, that's the biggest thing for me. How can it be that we don't teach leadership at school? And EQ would be a very important component of schooling. EQ is people, young scholars, young people would greatly beneficiate from being helped to raise their EQ. And therefore, you don't have to go to university, by the way. I mean, today also, if you look at what's going on the internet, you can have these quizzes, test your own EQ. You can then have these exercises of those elements I mentioned earlier. How do you impact them? But yeah, to your question, I think the world would be a much better place, especially from a leadership point of view, if you use a little bit more EQ. Because remember, if you want to take on interviews, your reporters along, if you don't treat them, if you don't understand them, if you don't appreciate them, how can you get the message across?
So when we're also here, and I'm glad you're touching on leadership because you're so passionate about the topic and we're learning from you and you're sharing your secrets, what exactly is the link between emotional intelligence and leadership, and what does it look like, particularly in practice?
Yeah, for me, very important. For example, say we have a executive meeting to make a point, firstly, to introduce and welcome every single person in the team. If it's a new team, if it's in your existing team, make a point of greeting everybody individually, right? Appreciate for who they are, why they're there. And so that first personal contact is number one. Second one, assess how they look. What's going on at Denver? You don't seem to be in a great space. What is it? And then that already build and set up the meeting for success if you want to discuss a strategic initiative or an outcome, whatever. Now, in that meeting, you would then obviously have your presentation, you would invite your comments, and what I do, for example, as well is I make sure I hear everyone. I will not say who else has got something to say. I will make sure that every single participant has something to, or has an opportunity to say. And I'm not asking you, what are you saying? Because obviously it's clear, it's nothing. What are you thinking? You have to be mindful how you ask the question. Because if I tell you, Denver, what do you say? You will answer me. It's clearly nothing. But if I say to you, Denver, what are you thinking? Then you will mind, well, I'm thinking A, B, or C. And then I have access to your thoughts and maybe the secret or the breakthrough possibility.
That makes me very excited. It requires a specific skill, Sven, to honor the contribution that an individual could make and to listen to them and also make use of it ultimately. How do you manage that?
Well, I see the benefit of the things that are not said. And mostly the most important things are the ones that are not said. And therefore, for knowing that there's a huge benefit of really listening between the lines. If you say A to me, I'll be really thinking about, is that what you really wanted to say to me? Because remember, language is an interpretation of what you're thinking, and it comes out here. You can say this is just a speaking device. It's just a device, a speaker, nothing else. There's a sound coming out that tries to interpret what sits in here, and then it comes out, and then you are the recipient. That then interprets with your mic, comes in here and interprets it back into your brain. And then hopefully the two of you understood what you've said. And that doesn't work. Often we misunderstand each other. It's not because the one wants to or not. It's not because the one doesn't understand or not. We just have different views. We have different perspectives. We have different experiences, past experiences, that allow us to pick up such maybe the thing that you wanted to say to me. And that's why it's such an important item that you look and receive every single thought, not what people say.
That's so powerful. Last Tuesday evening, when we spoke about purposeful leadership, you taught us that we are all leaders, and leadership starts at home, leadership just like charity. So how can we make use of emotional intelligence as parents, as leaders of our homes, to raise emotionally intelligent children who can become emotionally intelligent leaders of tomorrow?
Yeah, I think parents can play a dramatic role. And I think one thing for sure, we know now with the virtual conversations we have, with the internet that we have and so forth, we don't have to say the schools have to do it. So, we must just leave that blaming game also at the same time. We don't have to say, well, schools are the problem or something like that. We ourselves as parents can do it. You can from young and sit down with your child. Well, what does it mean to be self-aware? What do you think I would say A or B or C to you? How would you feel receive that? Because, then you make the kids aware there are ways that you say things, and as well as that they are received. So if you put yourself, and you teach a kid early to saying, put yourself in the one that listens to you. And then how does that feel like? And then, of course, the self-control. And I think it's a journey as well, for the kids as well. We are young, sometimes we listen, and then you hear God, blah, 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 again from the parents or something, and so forth. And also empathy, you can train empathy. What does it mean if you're receiving it? Motivation, social skills. How do you treat? The bullying issue today. That's parents that should take ownership of that, and not only schooling. Because if kids would understand what that means to be bullied, I think they think twice. And there we need to take ownership.
Absolutely. So awareness of emotional intelligence is, of course, a very important first step. But that doesn't suffice. One needs to go further. You need to internalize it to ultimately then live it. How can one go about it if you're a viewer this evening wanting to live emotional intelligence, now having received this awareness?
Yeah, I think it's for sure, it's quite a bit of, it really takes some work to be able to take your own EQ to the next level. One of the things which is very interesting to me is the moment I have a feeling about something that I don't feel good about it, then I need to talk about it. How many times do we make decisions and then we feel that feels like a good decision, or that doesn't feel like a good decision? How do you know that it does feel like a good or a bad decision? There's this thing, there's this gut feel, there is this other feeling that one have is to, and I don't know what that is. That there's the other energies that make you think this way and that way. And the biggest secret for me is catch yourself. If you don't feel good about something, talk about it. Because there lies the secret. There lies maybe the answer to certain things. And I think that's just one area. And then also sharing the caring. You know how wonderful, empathy? If you share empathy and how much it makes you feel good, and the impact you have, and the impact of people wanting to be with you because you're such a person, it's dramatic impact.
So Sven, unfortunately, we find ourselves in the middle of a crisis,
Sure.
the invisible enemy that we're all fighting. I'd like to hear from you, what difference, if any, can emotional intelligence make to help us overcome this crisis better?
Yeah, I think positivity is one of the secrets to overcome negativity or pessimism. Optimism becomes pessimism. If we realize we are where we are, and talking about how bad it is and so forth, may be a good thing to assess the situation, to be aware of it, but that's where it ends. We need to now think about what else can we do? What optimism can we create to take people along, to give people hope? Because that's the only thing we can do. If we dwell in the past about COVID the whole time and give it the reason, we will never get out of it. Because you receive what you ask for. You get for what you ask for. And I think that's another topic for me, is the SQ, success quotient, which is the latest thinking. And that has not been assessed at all. It's very difficult to measure. But in situations like this, we have to create, beyond EQ, optimism, hope, giving possibilities, painting pictures, telling the stories of how it could look like. And these are the powers beyond the current situation. And in COVID, we always talk about COVID. We have a crisis anyway in the world. How high is the poverty in the world? How high issues are? Where do we have, people still being tortured, women tortured, all these different things still happening. And that is pre-COVID too. So it's not that this has been all of a sudden a crisis. We have crisis all the time. So we have to develop a skill. How do we overcome all these issues?
It brings us back to the concept of accepting absolute personal responsibility for my happiness, for where I'm at, for my emotional intelligence, but also realizing that if I leverage that, I can make a positive contribution. I can't wait for Sven Thieme, I can't wait for government, I can't wait for my employer. I need to take charge of where I'm at.
Absolutely. I mean, I think if you want to have a great evening, and let's make it very practical, and you want to have a great party, or you want to have if you're not making sure you bring yourself in a great space, you will not be able to see any happiness. You will not be able to see any great vibe. It is all down to us. But maybe it could be the other way around. You're the one. Could be. You could be the one that contributes, that makes the vibe, that creates happiness. What a great space to be. And we all know, if we are realizing that we are responsible for our lives and our happiness, then we know that we could live longer. Many people say, cancer, you get of A, B, or C. No. Cancer is a very, very big factor or result of not being happy or trying not your utmost to be in a great space, and so many, many other things.
So it's going to take us forever to exhaust this super powerful and important topic of emotional intelligence, but I'm very happy that we can get the conversation going, that we can inspire, and that we can give people food for thought.
Yeah.
What food for thought would you like to leave the viewer with as far as emotional intelligence is concerned this evening?
First thing is go onto the internet, do yourself a study, internalize what is emotional intelligence. Make sure you find and evaluate yourself. Where do you stand? What else you can do? What exercises you can maybe do in terms of raising your EQ, and take that extremely serious. But first thing is recognize that it's important. Second step, exactly find out what it is. Thirdly, find out where you are. Fourthly, look at what you can do differently and raising that. and you will have already a different experience and outlook on life.
Thank you very much, Sven.
Thank you, Denver. And once again, I would like to thank Erika for the sign language interpretation, as well as Denver. I have great news. Denver will be with me next week again, and the two of us will discuss the next element of great leadership. Denver, it's really a pleasure to have you always here. And the two of us, we're doing that really. We want to find and give people hope, and also give secrets away from ourselves for young entrepreneurs, and also for people that currently struggling with the business as a result of COVID. And there are these little elements that we want to share. Looking forward to see you next week. Thank you.